Good day everyone. So this is the continuation of our recording discussion under human behavior. Okay, so under fundamental concepts. It says here that every field of social science or even physical science has a philosophical foundation of basic concepts that guide its development. For example, in accounting, so a fundamental concept is that for every debit, there will be a credit. So, what does this mean under the organizational behavior? As a summary, debit is what you receive or what is rewarded for you, and credit is how you behave in an organization. Okay, so for further explanation, so debit is something in return for you after what you have done in an organization, on how you behave, on how you show your personality, your abilities, your skills, your emotions, and even your on how you discipline or how you play your role in an organization. Okay, so credit is something what you give in the organization. So simple as that. Okay, so in these sayings, it tells us that there will always be a reward after an action you have done. Okay, so the entire system of double entry accounting was built on this equation when that system replaced single entry bookkeeping many years ago. 'Di ba? Under sa accounting kasi meron tayo palaging tinatawag na transactions, okay? And those transactions, sino ba ang gumagawa ng mga transactions na 'yon? So kayo, simple kayo 'yon. If there is a better transaction or there is a good transparency, or you've done your work with improvement and with good actions, in return you will be rewarded, or you will be guaranteed as an employee or an employer na effective doon sa company na yon. Okay, so it also says here in this is shown under the figure 1.3 that organization starts with a set of fundamental concepts revolving around the nature of people and the organizations. So figure 1.3 shows the fundamental concepts of organizational behavior. First one, under the nature of people, we have here the individual differences, the perception, a whole person, motivated behavior, desire for involvement, and value of the person. Next one, under the nature of organization are the social system, mutual interest, and ethics. Okay, so under the nature of people, which regard to people, there are 6 basic concepts. The individual differences, perception, a whole person, motivated behavior, desire for involvement, and value of the person. So first one, we have here the individual differences. If people have much in common, but each person in the world is also individually different. Okay, so the idea of individual differences is supported by science. Each person is different from all others, probably in millions of ways, just as each person's DNA profile is different. Simply, iba't iba naman talaga tayo ng DNA kasi hindi naman tayo pare-parehas ng pinanggalingan. Okay, so as far as we know, these differences are usually substantial rather than meaningless. Think, for example, of a person's billion brain cells and billions of possible combinations of connections and bits of experience that are stored there. All people are different, and this diversity needs to be recognized and viewed as a valuable asset to organization. So, as a connection, itong sinasabi nating connection, so alam naman natin na hindi naman tayo pare-parehas ng lahi. So, yun na yung isang meaning na individual differences. If hindi tayo pare-parehas, dapat i-recognize natin yung iba't ibang personalities or actions ng mga nakakasalamuhan natin or nakakasama natin sa isang organization. Ang mga Filipino, meron silang iba't ibang traits or personalities. Sa Pilipinas pa lang, iba't ibang lahi na tayo. So, hindi natin masasabi na yung pwede sa atin ay pwede din sa iba. So, let's take for example, internationally. Okay? So, there are different ways of how they do their living every day. And it is really far different from ours as a Filipino. Okay? So, sa isang organization, hindi natin mapipili na pare-parehas tayo ng lahi. Kaya nga minsan, meron tayong orientation para malaman kung paano ba ang gagawin natin under work, kung sino ba ang mga makakasama natin under work. That's why sometimes we are following different do's and don'ts. Okay? In this context, it also says here that the idea of individual differences comes originally from psychology. What do we mean by psychology? So, simply, this is the behavior, the traits, the personalities of every individuals. From the day of the birth, each person is unique. The impact of nature. So, the impact of nature, di mo naman pwedeng sabihin na dahil lalaki ka, ang gusto mo or ang dapat masunod na kapatid mo ay lalaki din ulit. So, yun yung impact of nature. Okay? So, and individual experiences after birth tend to make people even more different. So, this is the influence of nurture. Okay? So, merong pinapanganak ng normal delivery, meron din pinapanganak ng CS. Okay? So, individual differences mean that management can motivate employees best by treating them differently. Hindi naman indifferently na sinasabi na mas special dapat yung isa. In different way na dapat i-consider natin kung ano yung mga traits na iti-take as an action natin sa kanila. Okay? So, meron kasi sa iba't ibang tao naman, merong pwede mong gawin sa kanya, meron din sa isang kasama mo, hindi mo siya pwedeng gawan ng actions na yon. Okay? So, gamitin na lang natin yung mga sa under ng humor. Okay? So, meron tayong iba't ibang jokes minsan. Mapapansin nyo na lang minsan na merong mga jokes na pwede nyong sabihin sa mga kasama ninyo. Tapos, kapag sinabi ninyo sa isang kasama ninyo, hindi siya natutuwa. Kasi minsan, pwedeng maging personal siya. Minsan, dahil hindi mo naman alam yung status ng buhay niya, hindi mo mapapansin talaga na yung joke na sinabi mo is against sa buhay niya. Okay? So, if it were not for individual differences, some standard across the board way of dealing with employees could be adopted and minimum judgment would be required thereafter. Meaning, if you will consider the personalities of every employees under an organization, you can simply know how to motivate them and how to take an action or do or give tasks to them in different ways. Okay? So, individual differences require that a manager's approach to employees be individual, not statistical. Hindi pwedeng pantay-pantay lahat. Na yung example na lang, as a manager, Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin sa isang trabahador mo na, bakit si ganito ma'am, pwede siya, kaya niyang ganito. Bakit ikaw hindi mo kaya? Yun nga, kasi nga iba-iba din tayo minsan ng skills and abilities. That's why sometimes the manager needs to observe every employees that they have. Okay, so this belief that each person is different from all other is typically called the law of individual differences. So we always need to consider everyone's comfort place, or kung matatawag natin na dapat lagi natin i-consider ang pagkaiba-iba ng mga tao, dahil dito mo makikita kung paano mo sila itratrato, kung pwede ba yung ganito or hindi pala pwede sa kanya. So in short, respecting each individuals is really a big impact in an organization. So next here is we have perception. So people look at the world and see differently. Even when presented with the same object, two people may view it in two different ways. Their view of their objective environment is filtered by perception, which is the unique way in which each person sees, organizes, and interprets things. People use an organized framework that they have built out of a lifetime of experiences and accumulated values. Having unique views is another way in which people act like human beings rather than rational machines. Employees see their words differently for a variety of reasons. They may differ in their personalities, the needs, demographic factors, and past experiences, or they may find themselves in different physical settings, time periods, or social surroundings. Whatever the reasons, they tend to act at the basis of their perceptions. Okay, if you will become an employee someday, if you will undergo industry na, after you graduate, you will really observe different point of views. Okay? So, minsan, example, ikaw ay isang empleyado at marami kayo sa isang organisasyon, and the manager as big task sa isang empleyado, at sa point of view mo, siguro iisipin mo, siguro mas kaya niya yon, kaya hindi ako pinili. Okay? Sa point of view naman ng manager na yon, kaya ninyong lahat, pero there is something in that employee na mas magagawa niya yun ng mabilis. Dahil nga, sabi nga natin, paulit-ulit ang managers natin ay nag-o-observe yan sa empleyado nila araw-araw. Okay? So, point of views may be negative or positive side. So, whatever the reasons, they tend to act on the basis of their perceptions. Okay? So, minsan, kapag ganun ang senaryo na mas binibigyan ng task ng manager ninyo, yung isa ninyong katrabahuan. So, minsan iniisip ninyo, kaya ko din naman yun, bakit siya palagi, bakit hindi itry ni boss na ako naman. So, ganun palagi ang point of view ninyo pag ganun ang mga scenarios. Pero, hindi ninyo napapansin minsan na binibigyan din naman kayo ng trabaho na hindi naman kaya nung isang katrabahuan ninyo. Minsan, hindi nyo na yun napapansin kasi nga, mas nagfo-focus kayo sa negative impact. Okay? Next we have here is a whole person. So, although some organizations may wish they could employ only a person's skills or brain, they actually employ a whole person rather than certain characteristics. Different human traits may be studied separately, but in the final analysis, they are all part of one system making up a whole person. Skill does not exist apart from background or knowledge. Home life is not totally separable from work, and emotional conditions are not separate from physical conditions. People function as total human being. Okay, so let's take this as an example. For example, supervisor wanted to hire a new telemarketer named Annika Wilkins. She was talented, experienced, and willing to work two second shift. However, when Annika was offered the job, she responded by saying that she would need to start a half hour late on Wednesday because her child care service was not available until then. Also, since she had a minor handicap, her workstation required a substantial adjustment in height, so her supervisor had to consider her needs as a whole person, not just a worker. Okay, so ang sinasabi nating whole person minsan ay yung okay na siya in terms of skills, abilities, personalities, but then meron siyang ibang concerns, ganon. So, some managers intend to choose people who are already whole in mind, in knowledge. Syempre, sino bang hindi magkakagustong mag-hire ng empleyado na hindi pa siya mapapakitaan ng any expertise or knowledge. Okay, so the manager also need to consider that a home is not that is not separable from work. Okay, so if a manager wants to hire someone whom they know who already fit on the said position, they need to adjust and consider all the things that can go through out the work they are offered. Sabi dito, okay? So, when management applies the principles of organizational behavior, it is trying to develop a better employee, but it also wants to develop a better person in terms of growth and fulfillment. So, jobs shape people somewhat as they perform them. So, management need to take care about the job's effect on the whole person. Okay? So, hindi palagi dapat ang empleyado ang mag-a-adjust sa isang organization. The manager need to consider also the different things that they may help with their employees, especially if it will help them develop more or improve well at work. Okay, so employees belong to many organizations other than their employer, and they play many roles inside and outside the firm. If the whole person can be improved, then benefits will extend beyond the firm into a larger society in which employee lives. Okay, so it must always be a give and take situation. Dahil nga talaga naman ang mga empleyado minsan tumitira na sa opisina nila. That's why they must be taken good care by the organization itself. Okay, next thing we have here is motivated behavior. This is from the psychology. We learn that normal behavior has certain causes. So this may relate to a person's needs or the consequences that result from acts. In the case of needs, people are motivated not by what we think they ought to have, but what they themselves want. To an outside observer, a person's needs may unrealistic, but they are still controlling. This fact leaves management with two basic ways to motivate people. It can show them how certain actions will increase their need fulfillment, or it can threaten decrease the fulfillment if they follow an undesirable course of action. Clearly, a path toward increased need to fulfillment is the better approach. Okay, so motivation is essential to the operation of organizations. No matter how much technology and equipment an organization has, These resources cannot be put to use until they are released and guided by people who have been motivated. Okay, ma'am, saan po ba makukuha yung motivated behavior? Of course, sa isang place na productive and no issues at all. Okay? So, employees intend to work nicely and 100% improving if they are motivated by people who really works hard. Okay? So, motivated behavior are always the thing that every employees needs to have. Parang kayong mga students lang, okay? If you are surrounded with students who really work hard to study well, of course, your behavior will be adopted also by them, or their behavior will be adopted by yours also, okay? Next thing we have here is the desire for involvement. Many employees today are actively seeking opportunities at work to become involved in relevant decisions, thereby contributing their talents and ideas to the organization's success. So they hunger for the chance to share what they know and to learn from the experience. Consequently, organizations need to provide opportunities for meaningful involvement. This can be achieved through employee empowerment, a practice that will result in mutual benefit for both parties. Okay, desire for involvement. Ang mga empleyado kasi minsan they really wants to be hired in the company na talagang interested sila. So, if they have a chance or opportunities, they always grab it. So, kayo, soon, syempre, pipiliin ninyo yung firm na alam ninyong gusto ninyo at gusto nyong i-develop yung skills and abilities na meron kayo. Okay? That is your desire to be connected in an organization that you know you can follow and that you can adapt easily. And lastly, yung may isi-share mo talaga yung skills, knowledge, and yun nga, yung talent na meron kayo. Okay? So, next one is the value of the person. So, people deserves to be treated differently from other factors of production because they are of a higher order in the universe. Because of this distinction, they want to be treated with caring, respect, and dignity. Increasingly, they demand such as treatment from their employers. They refuse to accept the old idea that they are simply economic tools. They want to be valued for their skills and abilities and to be provided with opportunities to develop themselves. Okay. Sa iba't ibang empleyado na meron tayo sa isang organization soon kung kayo ay maging managers. Okay? So, you really need to consider the value of every individuals in your community or in your organizations. Hindi pwedeng kung paano mo nakikita yung isang empleyado mo ay ganun mo na din siya i-apply sa lahat. Kasi nga, 'di ba? Meron tayong individual differences na sinasabi. Why you really need to value them individually also because they have their differences. Syempre, sino bang hindi gustong ma-recognize yung iba't ibang effort natin sa isang organization? Okay, let's proceed with the nature of organization. So, with regard to organizations, the three concepts are they are social systems, they are formed on the basis of mutual interest, and they must treat employees ethically. Okay, so first one we have here is social system. This is from sociology. We learned that organizations are social systems. Consequently, activities therein are governed by social laws as well as psychological laws. Just as people have psychological needs, they also have social roles and status. Their behavior is influenced by their group as well as by their individual drives. In fact, two types of social system exist side by side in organizations. One is the formal or official social system, and the other is the informal social system. The existence of a social system implies that the organizational environment is one of the dynamic change rather than a static set of relations as pictured on an organization chart. All parts of the system are interdependent, and each part is subject to influence by any other part. Everything is related to everything else. Okay, social systems. This is about having connections with everyone. Sabi nga dito, merong formal, which is official. This is sometimes applied sa loob ng isang company. Okay, so you need to be socialized in terms of formalities. Meron din naman tayong social system na tinatawag na informal, in which this is on how you act or socialize with the people outside an organization. Of course, we always have our social life inside and outside of an organization. At yung dalawang formal at informal na yan ay talagang magkaiba. It will always depend on what organization or where are you applying that social system. Okay, next thing we have here is the mutual interest. Organizations need people, and people need also organizations. Organizations have a human purpose. They are formed and maintained on the basis of some mutuality of interest among their participants. Managers need employees to help them reach organizational objectives. People need organizations to help them reach individual objectives. If mutuality is lacking, trying to assemble a group and develop cooperation makes no sense because there is no common base on which to build. This is shown from figure 1.4. Mutual interest provides a superordinate goal, one that can be attained only through the integrated efforts of individual and their employees. Okay, mutual interest. Yun yung pagkapare-pareho ng mga interesting ideas, interesting facts ng iba't ibang empleyado na meron sa organization. Okay? If people or if employees share their mutual interests, mutual ideas, mutual perceptions, pero wag na natin consider yung perception. Basta, if they all have mutual ideas, mutual creativity, mutual understanding, and cooperation, an organization will always be productive and effective. Okay, so next here is ethics. Okay, so in order to attract and retain valuable employees in an era in which good workers are constantly recruited away, organizations must treat employees in an ethical fashion. More and more firms are recognizing this need and are responding with variety of programs to ensure higher standard of ethical performance by managers, employees alike. Okay, so ethics, parang sa iba't ibang organization, they always need to follow the conduct of ethical behaviors, meaning they always must form professional formalities and working in no doubt and with the respect. Okay, because we must always know that ethics is the use of moral principles and values to affect the behavior of individuals and organizations with regard to choices between what is right and what is wrong. Because every employee need to know what they must do and what they must not do in an organization. Dahil nga, if we always follow ethical behavior, it will always be a big part or the biggest part in an organization. Okay, simply, respect is always the key, and proper behavior is always the key for an effective organization. Okay, so as you can see here in figure 1.4, the mutual interest provides a superordinate goal for employees, the organization, and the society. Okay, when the organization's goal and actions are ethical, individual, organizational, and social objectives are more likely to be met. People find more satisfaction in work when there is cooperation and teamwork. They are always learning, growing, and contributing. So the organization is also more successful because it operates more effectively. Quality is better, service is improved, and costs are reduced. Perhaps the greatest beneficiary in society itself, because it has better products and services, more capable citizens, and an overall climate of cooperation and progress. Okay? So, wala namang organization na nagiging successful if they are not cooperating, 'di ba? Kung walang hindrance, kung walang hadlang, or kung walang misunderstanding, mas nagiging effective palagi ang isang organization. So let us discuss the basic approaches of this book. So what are the significance of this book? So organizational behavior seeks to integrate the four elements of people, the structure, technology, and environment. It rests on an interdisciplinary foundation of fundamental concepts about the nature of people and organization. The four basic approaches: human resources, contingency, results oriented, and systems, are interwoven throughout subsequent chapters. This is seen in the figure 1.5. Okay, so the human resources approach is the developmental. When we say developmental, it improves day by day. It is always concerned with the growth and development of the people toward higher levels of competency, creativity, and fulfillment, because people are the central resource in any organization and any society. Just like what we have discussed, an organization needs the people, and the people also needs the organization. Okay, so the nature of the human resources approach can be understood by comparing it with the traditional management approach of the early 1900s. In the traditional approach, managers decided what should be done and closely controlled employees to ensure task performance. Management was directive and controlling. So here in the figure 1.5, we can see the basic approaches of the book from the chapter 1. So human resources. So under human resources, it is the employee growth and development are encouraged and supported. Under the contingency, the different managerial behaviors are required by different environments for effective. Under the result-oriented, this is the outcomes of organizational behavior programs, which are assessed in terms of their efficiency. And lastly, under the systems, these are all parts of an organization interact in a complex relationship. First one we have here is the human resources approach, which is also called as the supportive approach. On the other hand, it helps employees become better, more responsible people, and then it tries to create a climate in which they may contribute to the limits of their improved abilities. It is also assumes that expanded capabilities and opportunities for people will lead directly to improvement in operating effectiveness. So we have here The human resource approach means that better people achieve better result. In the proverb illustrated below, give a person a fish and you feed that person for a day. Teach a person to fish and you feed that person for life. Okay? So it means that a manager doesn't need to control every behavior or personalities or skills of their employees, but support them with their growth and improvements every day. You can easily support them by correcting them if they have done something wrong or it's far different from the task given to them. Hindi kayo kailangang magpakabossy sa kanila, sa mga empleyado ninyo one day. Kailangan tignan nyo muna yung way of performance nila, tapos pinapakita mo sa kanila na nakasuporta ka doon sa ginagawa nilang performance. If they did something wrong or if they did something far from the task given to them, pwede mo silang ipag-stop, and when you stop them, you let them know what is wrong with their actions or what is wrong with their work. Okay? So, supporting employees are always a top priority of the managers for them to have an organization which is very effective. So next thing we have here is the contingency approach. Always remember that under contingency approach, this must have a prior analysis required. Okay? So the traditional management search for principles to provide one best way of managing. There was a correct way to organize, to delegate, and to divide work. So the correct way applied regardless of the type of organization or situation is involved. Management principles were considered to be universal. As the field of organizational behavior developed, many of its followers initially supported the concept of universality. Behavioral ideas were supposed to apply in any type of situation. For example, the belief that employee-oriented leadership should consistently be better than task-oriented leadership, whatever the circumstances. An occasional exception might be admitted, but in general, early ideas were applied in a universal manner. Dito sa quote na ito, okay? Minsan kasi, hindi nagiging productive ang mga empleyado natin if they are only given a task-oriented. Pag sinabing task-oriented, they need to focus on something, especially under leadership. It tells here that they need to focus with the task-oriented given to them. Meaning, there will be no opinions being shared on that said task. That's why, in every leadership of organization, it is really better to be an employee-centered. Kasi pag employee-centered yan, nakikita lahat ng mga empleyado natin kung ano nga ba yung nangyayaring hindi maganda sa isang organization. Nakikita nila yung iba't ibang facts na dapat palitan at nakikita nila yung iba't ibang strategies na pwedeng i-share ng mga kapwa katrabaho nila. Which means, mas mapapadali nilang ma-develop or ma-improve yung organization na meron sila. So it also says here that the strength of the contingency approach is that it encourages analysis of each situation prior to action, while at the same time discouraging habitual practice based on universal assumptions about people. Meaning, kapag meron tayong contingency approach, kung meron tayong socialization together with the managers and the employees of the said organization, mas mapapadaling yung iba't ibang actions natin na ginajudge natin yung mga katrabahuan natin dahil nga wala tayong socialization with them. If we will not mingle with the people around us, we will simply judge them without any facts given. Okay? So sa contingency approach, mas mapapadaling makilala mo lahat ng taong nasa isang organization. Okay? So the contingency approach also is more interdisciplinary, more system-oriented, and more research-oriented than the traditional approach. Thus, it helps managers use in the most appropriate manner all the current knowledge about people in organization. If you will continue knowing the different people from the higher position up to the lower level, you will simply have a manageable organization. Mas makikilala mo sila isa-isa at mas maikakat ninyo yung sinasabi natin na behavioral bias. Okay? So later on, we will discuss about that. Okay, next sa contingency approach is the result-oriented approach. This is the productivity. Okay? So, all organizations need to achieve some relevant outcomes or result. A dominant goal for many is to be productive. So, this results orientation is a common thread woven through organizational behavior. Productivity at its simplest is a ratio that compares unit of output with units of input, often against a predetermined standard. If more outputs can be produced from the same amount of inputs, productivity is improved. Or if fewer inputs are used to produce the same amount of outputs, productivity has increased. So the idea of productivity does not imply that one should produce more output. Rather, it is a measure of how efficiently one produces whatever output is desired. Consequently, better productivity is a valuable measure of how well resources are used in society. It means that less is consumed to produce each unit out of output. There is a less waste and better conservation of resources, a result increasingly valued by many in society. Okay? A result-oriented approach. Ito ang pinaka-productive sa iba't ibang approach na i-discuss natin. Siyempre, dahil sinasabi nating input and output is the performance of every employees. Kung mas marami daw outputs, meaning nag-i-improve ang productivity. At the other hand, pag sinabi namang maraming input, mas nag-i-increase ang performance. Ganon, okay? Okay, so dito tayo sa multiple inputs and outputs, okay? Productivity often is measured in terms of economic input and outputs, but human and social inputs and outputs also are important. For example, if better organizational behavior can be improved job satisfaction, a human output or result occurs. In the same manner, when employee development programs lead to a byproduct of better citizens in a community, a valuable social result occurs. Okay? So, organizational behavior decisions typically involve human, the social, or economic issues. And so, a number of results-oriented outcomes of effective organizational behavior are discussed throughout this book. Okay. So, sa multiple input and outputs, dito natin makikita yung performance ng mga empleyado. If they are effective with the organization or not. Kasi nga, sabi natin, kung mas maraming output, mas maraming na-produce. Productivity is really measured very well kapag marami namang input. Meaning, the increase of performance is easily shown in the organization. Okay? So, in short, a result-oriented always is the feedback of what an employee do in the organization. Okay, continuation to the result-oriented approach. So many of these measures are intertwined in the popular practice of total quality management, or also called as TQM. This is an integrated attempt to improve the quality of a firm's products or services through a variety of techniques and trainings. It typically focuses on creating high customer satisfaction through listening carefully to customers, building partnerships with suppliers, searching for continuous improvements in operational methods, training employees in the understanding and use of statistical tools, and meaningfully involving employees in team-based system. So, total quality management is also the way on how the managers will keep the productions and services of their organizations in proper manners. Kung makikinig sila sa mga customers' demand, kung makikinig sila or makikisama sila ng maayos sa mga suppliers nila, at kung bibigyan nila ng oras or ng sariling oras ang mga empleyado na magsama-sama sa isang lugar at mag-conduct ng team building activities, mas mapapadali yung management system nila. Okay? Sa feedback kasi ng mga customers natin, malalaman kung nagiging effective ba yung products and services natin in public. Okay? If we will listen to them as a manager, mas tatangkilikin pa ng mga customers yung products and services natin. Okay? So, under naman sa suppliers, if makikisama tayo sa kanila, makikinig tayo sa mga gusto din nila before we discuss our wants with them and needs with them, it will cause a better partnership. Okay? So, a better partnership always starts with a good friendship or good communication with your said suppliers. Okay? So, next one naman is trainings and the training and seminars for your employees. So even though they already have a different expertise, they already have what do you call this one, experiences from the job they have, they still need to conduct a seminar and trainings. What for, di ba? Dahil kailangan pa rin nilang mag-gain ng iba't ibang credentials for them to be supported, at sa seminars and trainings na yon, mas magbuboost pa yung knowledge, skills, and abilities na pwede nilang i-cater pa sa organizations ninyo. Okay? So, as they comes by, every employee needs to know a new way of what we call innovations. And with those innovations, we can simply apply those innovations by having different seminars and trainings for our employees. Kapag nagkakaroon sila ng iba't ibang idea galing sa iba't ibang speakers na pwedeng mag-perform ng seminars or mag-perform ng trainings, doon sa sarili nila, alam na nila sa sarili nila kung ano yung mas magiging actions nila para mas maging effective sila as an employee sa organization na meron sila. So, who will be benefited? Of course, the company or the organization again. Dahil nga, they will gain a different way of innovating products and services. We also have here what we call a formula. Okay? So, the role that organizational behavior plays in creating organizational result, this is illustrated here in the chart given in figure 1.6. Okay? So, let us look first at a worker's ability. It is generally accepted that the product of knowledge, one skill is applying it constitute the human traits called ability. Okay? Abilities can be improved through hiring better workers, abilities, or providing existing employees with greater previous experience. Dun sa abilities naman na ito, masasabi natin na yung mga abilities na meron sa hinahire natin is yung nakikita sa resume, yung skills, 'di ba, yung pinapakita mo doon na I am good at computer chauvinist, ganon. I am good in communicating skills. Okay. So, aside from that, abilities is also seen on the different experiences that an employer or that an employee can share through the interview. Okay? So, next one we have here is the motivation. Okay, so motivation results from a person's attitudes reacting in a specific situation. This book emphasizes employees' attitudes and how they are affected by situational factors to determine motivation. Motivation is always seen in a person who are observing in the said environment. Okay, yun nga yung sabi ko nga sa previous discussion ko kanina na some motivating behavior under doon sa behavioral motivations. So under there, I already talk na mas mamomotivate ang mga empleyado if the environment is really effective. Ma'am, in what way of effective po? Kung nakikita nila na nagpe-perform yung mga ka-empleyado nila in a good manners, yung naiiwasan nila yung kapag work may chismisang kahalo, ganon. Okay? Mas na-motivate ang mga empleyado natin if all the people inside an environment are working productively. That they can set aside the time of the rest time, the lunch time, the coffee break into the work proper. So that is motivation. Okay? So the interaction of motivation and ability determines a person's potential performance in any activity. So of course, organizational behavior also plays a part in motivating workers to acquire the other factor, ability. Okay? So the potential of human performance has to be mixed with resources, and a worker must be given the opportunity to perform to get organizational results. Resources such as tools, power, and supplies relate primarily to economic, material, and technical factors in our organization. Organizational behavior plays a key role in providing the opportunity to perform, as we already discussed. Okay, so how can a person be motivated kung hindi maibigay ng company or ng organizations yung materials na kailangan niya at work? Ma'am, what are those materials? So sometimes, under an organization, a person who works in an office really needs a laptop or a computer device, computer set. Syempre, paano ka naman makakapagtrabaho kung wala kang ganong gamit? Okay? So, mas mamomotivate ang empleyado if ipro-provide siya ng company na hindi na kailangang gumastos ng mga empleyado para doon sa material na kailangan nila. Okay? What other materials? Of course, office supply, ball pen, bond papers, books, anything which is needed under the office. If the company or organization will provide all those needs to their employees, they will be motivated, or they will be having a motivation to work properly in effectiveness to the organization that they have chosen. Okay? So, under dito sa figure 1.6, this is an equation showing the role of organization behavior in work system. So, we have here a knowledge and skill is equals to ability. Attitude and situation is equals to motivation. ability, and motivation is equals to potential human performance. And lastly, the potential performance and resources and opportunity is equal to organizational results. Okay? So next thing we have here is a system approach, okay? So treating an organization as a system is critically important to its success. The fundamental elements of the system approach include there are many variables within a system. That's the first one. Second one, the part of a system are interdependent. One part affects many other parts and is affected by many in a complex way. Third one, there are many subsystems contained with larger systems. Fourth, systems generally require inputs, engage in some process, and produce outputs. The input process output mechanism is cyclical and self-sustaining. This is the ongoing, repetitive, and uses feedback to adjust itself. Number 6, the system produces both positive and negative results. 7, the system produces both intended and unintended consequences. And lastly, the consequences of systems may be short-term, long-term, or both. Okay? So thus, the system approach compels managers to take a holistic view of the subject. Holistic organizational behavior interprets people-organization relationship in terms of the whole person, whole group, whole organization, and whole social system. So, it takes an across-the-board view of people in organization in an effort to understand as many of the factors as possible that influence people's behavior. Issues are analyzed in terms of the total situation affecting them rather than in terms of an isolated event or problem. Okay, so this system approach is how you will conduct or approach everyone's behavior. Dito nga yung sinasabi natin kung paano ba siya magproproduce ng positive and negative results. So, pakikipagsalamuhan ninyo kung paano nyo ba i-face yung different consequences. Doon naman sa consequences na to, if you will do every action time at time, alam ninyo sa sarili ninyo na may consequence yun. Diba? Kasi alam naman natin kung masama or hindi yung mga pinaggagawa natin minsan. Okay? So, consequences can be short-term or long-term. Diba? O merong isang action, kunwari lang sa isang organization, may isang empleyado na galit sa manager niya. Okay? So, ang iniisip niya or kino-consider niyang gawin ay pasabugin yung kumpanya. So, what type of consequence will be done? Of course, a long-term consequences. Siyempre, yung conscience niya pa na nagpasabog, yung kaso niya, kung gaano siya katagal sa kulungan, and isipin na lang niya kung paano yung resulta sa buhay ng mga taong madadamay. So, that is a long term, di ba? Okay? So, sa short term naman, if a person will do corruption, ganyan. So, short term siya in terms na pwede siyang ang consequence niya is matanggal lang siya sa trabaho. Okay? So, yun, short term. But, at the other side, pwede din siyang long term kasi hindi na siya magkaka-work pa. Kasi nga, nasa good moral niya na yun, yung actions niya. Diba? Okay. So, sinasabi din dito, however, negative effects as well as positive effects sometimes result from the behavioral actions of managers. Yung sinabi ko nga sa inyo, hindi magagalit ang empleyado kung nagkasundo sila ng manager nila. Hindi gagawa ng maayos na trabaho ang isang empleyado kung kung hindi sila okay ng manager niya. It is always with the influence of the people ahead of them. Okay? A cost-benefit analysis is needed to determine whether potential actions will have a net positive or net negative effect. So, as you can see here in figure 1.7, cost-benefit analysis or organizational behavior options. So, from proposed OB actions or proposed organizational behaviors, it can be potential costs, it can have also potential benefits, and as you compare them, you will decide what actions will be taken. So, this is more particularly sa mga managers natin. Okay? Kung paano ka mag-a-act sa harap ng mga empleyado, ganun ka magkakaroon ng potential cost, benefit, and in that actions, i-compare yan ng mga empleyado ninyo and they will decide on how they will perform at work. Okay? So next thing we have here is the limitations of organizational behavior. Okay? So this is the problems exist in OB's nature and use. Okay? So behavioral bias. So, people who lack system understanding and become superficially infatuated with OB may develop a behavioral bias, which gives them a narrow viewpoint that emphasizes satisfying employee experiences while overlooking the broader system of the organization in relation to all its public. Okay? So, concern for employees can be so greatly overdone that the original purpose of bringing people together, productive organization outputs for society, is lost. So, sound organizational behavior should help achieve organizational purposes, not replaced by them. So the person who ignores the needs of people as consumers' organizational outputs while championing employees' need is misapplying the ideas of organizational behavior. To assume that the objective of OB is simply to create a satisfied workforce is mistake. For that, goal will not automatically translate into new products and outstanding customer service. Moreover, the person who pushes production outputs without regard for employee need is misapplying organizational behavior. Okay? So, sa behavioral bias, dito na yung sinasabi natin na if the manager will always take the only side of one employee they have, it is really unfair for everyone. We really need to consider set asiding the behavioral bias. Okay? How will you know bakit yung isang empleyado ninyo ay nag-a-act ng hindi maganda at hindi nagpa-perform if you will not talk to them? Okay? Always, sabi nga dito sa isang discussion natin na you will really need to consider individual preferences. Okay? So, people really have their different point of views in life. Diba? As a manager soon sa mga magiging manager sa inyo one time, lagi ninyong iisipin na i-consider na pakisamahan lahat ng empleyado ninyo, na lahat ng actions nila ay iintindihin ninyo. Why are they not performing very well? Of course, there is a reason behind that one. Okay? So, never stick to the behavior of one employee, but you as a manager needs to consider understanding the potentials and behaviors of your employees. Okay? So, you really need to balance your observation with all the people that surrounds your organizations for you to have a better and well-functioning organization. Okay? Next one we have here is the law of diminishing returns. So some questions under here is, too much of a good thing? How does the law work in organizational behavior? Okay? So, overemphasize on an organizational behavior practice may produce negative result, as indicated by the law of diminishing returns. So, this is a limiting factor in organizational behavior the same way that is in economics. In economics, the law of diminishing returns refers to a declining amount of extra outputs when more of a desirable input is added to an economic situation. After a certain point, the output from each unit of added input tends to become smaller. Okay? So, the added output eventually may reach zero and even continue to decline when more units of input are added. Okay? So, the law of diminishing return is an organizational behavior works in a similar way. It states that some point, increases of a desirable practice produce declining returns, eventually zero returns, and then negative returns as more increases are added. Okay? So, when that point is exceeded, there is a decline in returns. In other words, the fact that practice is desirable does not mean that more of it's more desirable. More of a good thing is not necessarily good. Dito naman, hindi lahat ng magandang resulta ay galing sa magandang gawa, 'di ba? Hindi porket hindi porket ang isang organization ay tumatanggap ng maraming rewards, meaning they already done a good job. Yes, meron part na good job ganun, pero syempre hindi natin may pagkakaila na yung mas nag-e-effort na mga tao ay hindi nakre-credit, 'di ba? Minsan kasi yung mga nasa babang posisyon, hindi sila napapansin na mas nagpro-produce sila ng inputs para magkaroon silang ng output na ikakatulong nila sa kumpanya. Meron kasing mga ahead na positions na nagiging credit grabber. And those credit grabber really forgets the true person behind the said projects. Nagigets nyo ba yun, guys? 'Di ba? Kayo, sa groupings ninyo as a student, meron yung gawa ng gawa. Pero ikaw yung gumawa ng mga inputs doon sa ginawa ninyong project. But then, nahiya ka, hindi mo kayang mag-talk. Yung nag-talk sa harapan, sa kanya lahat ng credit, sa kanya lahat ng congratulations, etc. Then, until that, nakakalimutan nung taong yon kung sino ba talaga ang nasa likod ng project na yon. Diba? Nagigets nyo ba? Kaya nga ng quote dito, the relationship shows that organizational effectiveness is achieved not by maximizing one human variable but by combining all system variables together in a balanced way. So, if you will be having an organization one day, never forget to balance all the congratulations. Dapat lahat ng credits mai-apply sa lahat ng empleyado ninyo. Huwag niyong kakalimutan na kahit nasa mababang posisyon, janitor man yan or ano, kasama pa rin sila ng organization ninyo, and they really deserve to be at least be known as a part of the said organization. Okay? So next thing we have here is the unethical manipulation of people. Okay? A significant concern about organizational behavior is that its knowledge and techniques can be used to manipulate people unethically as well as to help them develop their potential. People who lack respect for the basic dignity of the human being could learn organizational behavior, ideas, and use them for selfish ends. They could use what they know about motivations or communication in the manipulation of people without regard for human welfare. People who lack ethical values could use people in unethical ways. So the philosophy of organizational behavior is supportive and oriented toward human resources. Okay? Dito sa unethical manipulation of people, this is simply using of people in no manner ways. Diba? Dahil nga, minsan, ginagamit natin na power yung natapos natin, yung position natin, especially yung mga managers minsan. May mga managers tayo na sobrang bossy nila. At ginagamit nila yung pagiging boss nila para magamit yung empleyado na alam nilang mas may magagawa siya kesa sa kanya, 'di ba? Pinapagawa niya ng pinapagawa, but at the end of the day, ang mare-recognize is yung manager without giving a credits to the employee. And that is an ethical manipulation. Example ang scenario, ako yung boss mo, tapos merong pinagawa yung mas supervisor sa akin. As a manager, may supervisor din ako. Yung supervisor may pinagawang activity or task. And me, as a manager, pwede kitang utusan na empleyado na ikaw ang gumawa nun. Tapos pag natapos niya, hindi mo man lang i-credit yung tinulong sa'yo ng empleyado na yon. And that is really unethical. Okay? Never use your power to manipulate your workers. And never use your power to use your employees. Okay? Lagi niyong tatandaan na never use your power kung kayo ay nasa mataas na posisyon na dahil hindi ninyo alam kung kailan iikot ang mesa, 'di ba? In English, a table always turns. So, if you do not believe in that sayings, but at least you know what is karma. Kaya minsan, dapat maging balance lang tayo, maging equal lang tayo. Gawin ninyo yung trabaho ninyo, gawin ninyo yung task ninyo, at wag na wag kayong manggagamit ng mga katrabahuan ninyo. Okay? So, unethical manipulation is an example of using your power to the people who is lower than your position. So if we have unethical manipulation, we also have ethical leadership. So this recognize the following. Social responsibility. This is responsibility to others arises whenever people have power in an organization. If what is your position, then stick to your position and never use the other's position just because you need them. Okay? So, social responsibility. Next is open communication. So, the organization will operate as a two-way open system with open receipt of inputs from people and open disclosure of its operations to them. Open communication meaning you need to listen with all the rants, with all the ideas, opinions of the every employees you have, okay? Open communication is listening to the negative and positive thoughts of your employees and just letting them suggest in any ways, okay? Next is cost-benefit analysis. In addition to economic costs and benefits, human and social costs and benefits of an activity will be analyzed in determining whether to proceed with the activity. Okay? So, cost-benefit means tinitignan nila kung ang production na ito ay dapat bang ituloy at the end of the day, there will be a reward after that analysis. Okay? So, as the general population learns more about organizational behavior, it will be more difficult to manipulate people. But the possibility is always there. That is why society desperately effectively needs ethical leaders. A good leader, a good role model is always effective to the community unless ang nasa baba or ang empleyado ay ayaw ng maayos na pamamalakad. Okay? Kung maayos kang ituring ng manager mo at kung ang manager ay nakikinig sa lahat ng opinion ng kanilang trabahador, maganda at maayos ang production and service nila. Okay? So next we have here is continuing challenges. So seeking quick fixes. One problem that has plagued organizational behavior has been the tendency for business firms to have short time horizons for the expected payoff from behavioral programs. So this search for a quick fix sometimes leads managers to embrace the newest fad to address the symptoms while neglecting underlying problems or to fragment their efforts within the firm. So the emergence of organizational development programs that focuses on system-wide change and the creation of long-term strategic plans for the management of human resources has helped bring about more realistic expectation concerning employees as a productive asset. So immediate expectations are not realistic. Okay? So, as you seek quick fixes, always consider the consequences after that. Okay? Ano nga ba yung mga madalang na issues minsan? Okay? So, misunderstanding. Okay, what is the quick fixes of those misunderstanding? Open forum, di ba? You will listen to the both of side and you will let them talk to each other and recognize what have done wrong, and after that you ask them what do they want to do, what are their decision. Always consider asking the both side, diba? Quick fixes. Okay, next thing we have here is varying environments. So can organizational behavior adapt to change? Oh, that's the question. Another challenge that confronts organizational behavior is to see whether the ideas that have been developed and tested during periods of organizational growth and economic plenty will endure with equal success under new conditions. Ito na yung sinasabi nating adaptation, okay? Syempre, sa isang organizations, meron yung mga dati na, and as time goes by, napapalitan sila, mga bagong salta. At pag may bagong salta, may bagong ideas. Ganun lang yon. Isipin nyo lang yon. Paikot-ikot lang kapag may bago tao, may bagong idea. Dahil nga may individual differences tayo, meron din tayong kanya-kanyang suggestions. Okay? Always consider that as time goes by, as an organization grow and improve, hindi nag-iisang magiging leader niyan. So we also have different promotions. Leaders are also change. And with that, you really need to adapt to the new environment that will happen on the organization itself. Okay? And always consider that adaptation always considers adjustment. And with those adjustments, you just need to understand them very well. And understanding them very well, if you have different thoughts, if you have suggestions and opinions, then feel free to share them to the organization. Okay? Ganun lang magiging maayos ang pamamalakad. Kapag may something wrong kang napansin, i-share mo and hayaan mong paano nila yun ayusin, kung papakinggan ka ba nila or hindi. Diba? Varying environments is always adaptation and adjustments. Kapag kayo naging manager na one day, lagi ninyong iisipin na hindi lang kayo ang nasusunod. Lagi din ninyong papakinggan yung mga co-employees ninyo and always listen first to your managers. and talk to them if you have your own concern. Okay? Okay, so that ends our second recording discussion. I want you to use your yellow notebook to answer the given question provided in this last part of the video. Okay? So this will serve as your quiz and attendance. So, you can at least write your answers only. Wag na ninyong isulat yung questions dito. And do not forget the format I have asked you to write at the first page of your yellow notebook. And this will be passed on July 28 at our scheduled time. Okay? So, thank you so much, and I will beep you again on our next recording discussion. Thank you.